What are some NSFW secrets about the military? Our Air Force's most critical asset, nuclear weapons, are primarily guarded by a bunch of really bored teenagers. Navy is the same. The guy that Naruto runs to the galley is the same one that stands watch over the nuclear reactor. They preach and preach and preach mental health is important and that they don't want people getting burnt out. But unless you speak the words "I am going to heal myself," they don't give a single duck how you're doing mentally. Like it's not possible to be having a hard time and yet still want to be alive. The food boxes that come in literally say for prison and military use only. My husband was watching a documentary with people in prison and was like, "Hey, we have the same blankets on the ship." That is why I bought an ice blanket in Korea forever ago to replace the army green crap blanket. 24 years later, I still have it, and it's still wonderful. Swiss sex tanker here. It cost us 2,500 Swiss francs to fire a tank shell if I remember correctly. Once. We'd fire about a dozen a day, per tank, in squads of 4. That's upwards of 100k per day for a training exercise. For all that fun, we'd eat rice or pasta 3x a week because we can't afford better quality food. People be ducking. Like, all the time. Deployment wives' husbands are a thing. Also, people play a lot of ridiculous pranks and pull a lot of silly stunts. On my last deployment we had a phantom shitter. Just some guy, or girl, they never got found out, who would cheat in random spaces. I had a friend who was a really dark-skinned black dude. At night, when we were only running red lights, he'd hide under the stairs to the boat locker right in front of the door to sonar one and wait until someone was nearly face to face with him and then he'd smile. All you'd see is this perfect set of red teeth all disembodied like the Cheshire Cat. Freaked me the duck out first time he got me with it. One time we were in pretty rough seas and the ship was rocking pretty hard. Now, on the main deck there's only 3 hallways that run across the ship. The longest one was midship and was where our chow line was. People were sliding up and down that way with the rocking of the ship. It was pretty wild. What we sonar techs would do is get in our trunk, imagine an elevator shaft with a ladder that connects 4 levels, and time a jump so that when the ship crested a wave and if you timed it right you could jump up to the next room. My LPO made it like 3 floors once. If the ship has a swim call, meaning everyone can swim in the ocean while at sea, there'd be a couple of people with rifles on shark watch. If there is an ice cream social for no reason you're going to get bad news. Except for when they finally got Bin Laden. Edit. Forgot to add that I went to electronics school with a guy whose last name was Sample. So he was literally Seaman Sample. One of my postdoc positions was at a big name university and we did a lot of experimental work, so we had a staff of engineers, machinists, etc. on staff full time. Our data acquisition guy was a former electrician on a nuclear sub. I swear to God that guy was a ducking magician. Now most people in my field have some basic electronics skills. I can build a circuit and solder pretty darn good. My stepdaughter came to me with her instrument column from an early 80s VW Cabriolet that basically wouldn't do shit. Solder joints broke, it's a known issue. I took one look and knew I could never do it. Maybe I'd get it halfway working if I was lucky. I took it to our guy and he sat there with me bullshitting while he was redoing the solder. Don't know if he was removing old solder or just remelting. It took 10 minutes and he was only half paying attention while he did it. The thing worked perfectly and I got major brownie points. I miss that guy. Swingers exist on every single base in the world. In Sigonella they would use different boxes of detergent in the windows to show what they were into and what age range they were looking for. Patrolling the housing area became much more interesting when you see who lives in the houses and what they're into. Back in the before time, San Diego used to have massive 6 parties. Not vanilla couple swap, either. A lot of gay and B singles just DTF with B couples mixed in. Officers, enlisted, doctors, nurses, hardcore men. It was wild. During DADT, that was risking your career. We had female soldiers committing their own prostitution. They had a code and everything. If a girl at the coffee shop was wearing points and a pink PT belt, she was down to duck for money. One or more of these girls contracted a disease, and next thing you know there is a base-wide epidemic. And I still remember a commissioned doctor coming into the break area screaming, "If I have to look at one more ducking dirty big dig, I'm quitting. Duck it." This is very common in the Navy on cruises. Women would sell if off during the cruise, making bank the whole time. Had a buddy who knew one who got caught as she was crossing the quarterdeck, and another female had snitched on her and they checked her bags as she left the ship for contraband. She had to explain why she had $30,000 cash in her sea bag. You have to show your asshole to one of the oldest doctors on the planet before they let you join. I think it is a commitment thing. When I did this, one of the questions on his list was, "Do you drink?" I said no, my family has a bad history with alcohol. Dude sat his clipboard aside and had a good 10-minute heart-to-heart with me about his own family's struggles and how abstaining was really the best path in our situation. Then picked his clipboard back up and jumped right into, "Okay, I need to see your anus." I briefly tried to get my pilot license. This involved a special physical to qualify. You start by disrobing and donning the typical hospital gown. Partway through, I'm laying on the table. The doctor asks me to roll on my side. Could sense him just kinda giving a good once over from behind me to make sure things looked right, I guess. Then he says, "And I'm required to do this," then gently spreads my ass cheeks. And that was the end of the physical. I can't help but wonder, what disqualifying symptoms does that identify? Like things are looking okay. Then as cheeks get spread, and suddenly, I don't like this at all. You can't be a pilot. When my brother-in-law was in the Navy, he was assigned to an aircraft carrier. He told me that people, both men and women, will pee in the gangway. If you don't know, it's practically a hallway, or take a dump in the trash can real quick because they didn't have enough time to get to the bathrooms. He accidentally walked up on some guy and girl doing it in the corner of one of the gangway. Another time he brought his PS4 on board, and one of his roommates was playing it and he walked in on him beating off while at the strip club on GTA 5. Our computers don't look or function anything like they do in the movies. It takes me 15 minutes to a half hour to log into my computer, and when I do, good luck opening Outlook or anything else. This is well known amongst all service members. The worst computers I've ever used in any job. The reason this is NSFW is because the military needs to have functioning computers, and not having that can make our work literally not safe. I used to be a data recovery technician. On multiple occasions from different individuals in different branches of the service, I would get an external hard drive to recover, and on that drive would be a folder of nudes made up of the wives, girlfriends of members of that unit. They were split in 2 folders of last names of, I assume, the service member to make them identifiable. Basically all the nudes being sent in by partners were shared among everyone in the barracks unit, whatever. One time I got to see photos of Saddam being pulled out of the spider hole. There was the famous one that was on the news when it happened, but there were also a few others that weren't in the media, where his face was being introduced to the butt of a rifle. The amount of unreported injuries to dock or to command, thus leading to lifelong issues. On the other hand, if you do go to dock about an issue, you'll be berated and told you are lying about an issue to get out of duty. PT was ignored and told I was lying about back sciatic issues for months by doc. Jumped chain of command, went to my captain, had an MRI's raise of my lower back, and a month later had a microdiscectomy of my L5. Damage was done, medically ineligible to re-enlist, 7 years later, and have to get a spinal fusion due to severe disc degeneration and chronic sciatic pain and permanent nerve damage. Your medic failed you. I believe my guys, no matter what, even if they're trying to just get out of PT, I'm gonna hook the homies up. I had a chick FWB at school who grew up everywhere and nowhere. 20 minutes after first meeting her, she was hanging with my new roommate and I in our room. Says these clothes are uncomfortable, and before I could even turn my head she was naked on my bed. She had later confided in me that she started ducking soldiers on base at 13, and a lot of times it was consensual. And she said she was definitely not the only child being assaulted raped. I stopped messing around with her for a long time after that and was just a good friend for her to lean on until SI year when she was still very much in therapy and we tried dating slowly. It didn't work out, but I always wish her the best. The amount of waste, fraud and abuse is exponentially more than you think. It still blows my mind that we just shoot all our extra ammo at the end of range day, to make sure we get the same amount of ammo next time. Billions have probably been wasted on that. And that's a small thing. I don't know how much of a secret it is, but if you're in the military or married to the military, the odds of you being cheated on sexually, or being the cheater, increase drastically compared to your civilian peers. As a former military kid, I look back on my days in school and can now work out why so many of my classmates had step-parents or lived with single parents who had friends come over on Friday nights. My closest friend Alex 3rd through 5th grade had his parents get divorced. His dad was in Afghanistan and when he came back, they got divorced and he moved with his dad to Maryland. My friend Trevor in the 5th grade was told he had to sleep over at different friends' houses every other week on Friday or Saturday. I had another friend in 7th grade whose parents had an open relationship. This didn't click until I got older, but the mom's friend Mike would be over and the dad's friend Stephanie would come over a bit later. People in the military are a different breed. You will intimately know others that you are not attracted to, out of pure necessity. When I was active duty, my barracks mate had a pillow needle cyst removed. You know, the kind between your ass cheeks. Because we were medics, he was sent back with all the packing gauze a man could ever need in 8 lifetimes, and told he would be fine to handle it himself. Except it's like, really hard to pack your own temporary asshole. So, as his roommate and another medic, it became my job. I spent weeks monitoring his booty for infection and repacking the site. I have images burned into my mind. We're still good friends. He's married and has kids now. He's doing well. We've known each other over a decade and I guarantee you I could identify his body by just as before his wife would be able to, and I haven't seen him in years. Intentionally left vague, as if that needed to be said. The girls can get about as wild as the men. Especially in certain career fields. We had a group of Air Force maintainers come into my strip club. 2 girls, 3 guys. The guys were really nice, respectful, tipped well. The girls bought a VIP room. And it got wild. I've stripped for girls before. It's more common than you would think. But those girls, I'm pretty sure they spent over $10K and were treated like queens. One, we had a golden child in our unit. All the leadership loved him, especially our operations superintendent. Guys used to go to the NCO club, get drunk and crash in the men's rooms to avoid DUIs. So this married guy, his wife was in our career field and in our unit, crashed in a female airman's room. She wakes up, comes to. She was drunk too, with McDude inside her going to town. They reassigned the female victim to another team. Non-standard procedure, and signaled to everyone that accusations were false. Female was wrong. He got away scot-free. Wife never found out. Victim ended up getting out of the military. MD dude eventually made Chief E9. It was ducking disgusting. Yes, I spoke up and yes, I was ignored. At an co-leadership school in a class that loved to get drunk and party. Our rooms were assigned by class. Class A, Class B, etc. So it was just our class in the long corridor. A married girl gets drunk and she's in her own room. 4 dudes are also partying with her, are also drunk. They leave one guy as lookout outside her room and the 3 guys grape her. She comes to, realizes what happened, talks to the school commandant about what happened. One of the guys admitted, the lookout. Because the girl's marriage was already shaky, she chose not to press charges. So 3 guys got away with raping her. It was ducking disgusting. This happened 2 days before we all graduated from a month-long leadership class. Oh yeah, one of the rapists got a leadership away, based on academic achievement. I was in the Navy in the early 90s. I spent a total of a few months in the Philippines and Thailand. We were handed a box of condoms before we left the ship. Some of the things I saw: walk into a bar and have 5-10 girls run up to you to try to get you to pay their bar fine, rent them for the night. Walk into a massage parlor and see 30 women behind glass with numbers on their shirts and you picked one. A bar where women shoot ping pong gonads out of their vajayjays, pull strings of razors blades out of them, or stick a whole banana up and drop out slices. A game called Smiles where a woman would go under a table and take turns going down on whoever was there. The first one to smile paid for a round. I had friends wake up while getting a tattoo with no recollection up to that point. Other friends sleep with ladder boys, with or without their knowledge, and others who had no idea how many women they had sex with. Me and my buddy were chased out of a bar by a screaming, knife-wielding prostitute and nobody even looked up from their beers. Looking back, it was legitimately scary the freedom we had for debauchery. Hangover Part 2 came close, but it was still very tame compared to back then. Had a former US Marine sergeant tell me about his crew overseas. One of them bought a fleshlight and they all shared it, and all of them got chlamydia. These duckers didn't clean the damn thing before they shared it. One of my commands, I'm Army, had a BN with some women who ran a prostitution ring of themselves. The one woman I knew who claimed she knew what was going on, I didn't believe her for a second, but I was busy that day and didn't call bullshit on her. I was a supply sergeant, I actually had to ducking work, said they made about $40,000 as a group before they got caught 4 months into their deployment. Gross. I personally saw people fucking in the Porto Johns. Had one of our Ranged Co's at basic tell us about his jack after every fight he would masturbate. It started in Panama for him. He called it his Panama Jack. I mean, you do you sant, but why you telling me? Later in life I had Sid close down my building for a few days and a Cole was arrested when they found his BDSM shack on our maintenance facility. I got more, but these are the ones worth writing down. The others are pretty normal fucking and cheating at work. We nasty. When I was in the Colombian military, I worked with a bunch of American military. They would come down and always end up at the whorehouses, most of which featured underage prostitutes. Every once in a while an American would beat up, rape, or kill a prostitute. The Department of Defense would immediately fly them out of the country so they couldn't be prosecuted. No idea if anything actually happened to them when they got back to the States, but I know that at least one of the guys that beat the shit out of a 15-year-old after she asked for her money is still active military. Crimes are handled much differently in the military. We had our own police force and criminal system. But yeah, I can imagine stuff getting covered up and swept away depending on the soldier. But also because it's US. Military, so gotta keep a squeaky clean. Imagine prosecuting someone who raped a girl like that is the same as admitting it happened. So doubtful they did that after flying the soldier out. Might have gotten knocked down or pay taken, or nothing at all depending on who, what, when, where type deal. But yeah, it's crazy what you see and hear about sometimes. Military friend told me how the camps they set up are often just buried instead of reused. Said one base camp they used, and most for that matter, out in the Middle East can't be recovered or transported back for various reasons, so they bury everything. All the tents, all the excess gear, all the equipment, buried. Also, as soon as they leave, the locals come to get up and keep it. Kinda seen as a boon after the military leaves a site. It is 100,000% not what anyone that's not served would think it is. Drug use, crime, assaults, of all kinds, etc. Most never see any sort of actual danger as far as war goes. Maybe deployed, but never actually do anything. The veterans you see lined up at Applebee's on Veterans Day? Only time they ever touched their weapon was when they were at the range. You've seen more combat trying to get a 3-year-old to bed. My dad's a Marine from a family of actual combat. There was a shitty cell phone video of folks trying to wake my uncle up because he had learned to sleep through mortar. Lots of dead great uncles and such since my family treated military service like the greatest honor ever. Veterans, he gets extremely pissed off when someone around here tries to act like being in the military makes them better. When me and my brother asked about it, he basically just said that everyone is some special forces badass with a nickname like Bones, when 99% of military service is logistics and food, and the louder they are the less likely they actually did anything. I never joined, so IDK. I was too busy being blind and having some ducking genetic diseases, so I just played COD and watched my dad turn into a progressively worse alcoholic who watches old Inside Boot Camp documentaries while basically never talking about his service ever. Hell, the only reason we even knew he actually served was from my grandma and finding some pins in the basement. I once worked on a military project where they forgot to plan a deck, so they just insulated over it without decking. When we told them we couldn't, they forced us and said if we didn't, our business would cease to exist. So we did. About 4 years later, it would cause a roof collapse and kill the people inside. They tried to blame the company I was with back then, and those of us who built it, and when we proved that the mistake was there, we suddenly found them attempting to confiscate all our computers, physical folders, including our staff's private information, and basically every bit of written down paper in the building, right in time to try them again. What they didn't know was one of our former staff members had been using his personal desktop back then. The information was accidentally leaked online, and the camera footage of their undocumented raid was stored on cameras, which saved it live to an online backup. They weren't aware. This also got uploaded, and suddenly they backtailed. The families of the deceased had all the info they needed for court, and the company not only had proof of multiple illegal practices but that they were being framed. A link from an anonymous Yahoo email account was sent to everyone. The judge, every contractor that was on site, and the families. Suddenly, a hush agreement and a very large settlement was on the table within hours. With an agreement, the videos would be removed and destroyed. And that's how a small construction company grew to love YouTube.